Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Max Danielsen Show. I'm your host, Max Danielsen, and today we do not actually have a guest for today's show. Unfortunately, my scheduled guest for the show today had some stuff going on with some family coming in town, and unfortunately, just things didn't work out, but that's okay. He'll eventually be on the show. We're going to move it to one of the first episodes of the summer, which is about 20 episodes away, of course. So far, or so close, but so far, so close to summer. But thankfully, it's winter break here, so can't complain. Next week, however, we will have our regularly scheduled guests. That will be Aaron Hunter, a former teammate of mine at Bishop Lynch High School, and as well a current baseball player at Lamar Community College in Colorado. So that will be awesome to hear from him. We'll be talking especially a lot about baseball, and then just what's ever going on in the sports world. And then the week afterwards, during January 3rd, that will be pretty much the most hyped up podcast so far to this day, which will be with my former co-host, Jared Hedges of Jam Sports. I know a lot of people from Bishop Lynch are going to be tuning into that episode, especially with the history of me and Jared. It's going to be a good one, and especially I feel like it will be he has the potential to be my best episode up to date, just because of the person that I'm getting on the show, the chemistry that we had together on Jam Sports. It's going to be awesome. We'll hear how he's doing in life, what he's up to, if he's maybe making himself his own podcast. We don't know. We'll see how that goes. Definitely excited for that podcast, but for now, we got some news to get into, so let's jump right in with the Texas Rangers acquiring Corey Kluber for Delino DeShields and Emmanuel Clase. Starting out for the Indians, not a bad, how should I say this? Not a bad package for them to get back. I don't know if that's the right thing I'm looking for. There's probably a better way to state it. But right now, I mean, the Indians have, not a bad return. That's wow. How did I not think of that earlier? As you can tell, I'm way out of it right now because I'm recording this pretty late on Friday night because I've been trying to look for a guest all day and just didn't work out. So I just decided, you know what? Once noon hit, why not just let all the news come in and then do another solo podcast? So I apologize. I know last week's podcast, if you haven't listened to it, by the way, go listen to it. I know it's not the most viewed right now, especially with the fact that there is not another guest, and usually we have about 15, 20 people per podcast when there's a guest on. And then for mine, it's not the best. So I understand if you're listening to the podcast right now, I do apologize. I know you don't really like to hear me blabber on about sports for 45 minutes to an hour, but just trust me here. I'm going to state all of the news that you might have missed out on this week, or just want an opinion on it from a source that is kind of outside what you think, and maybe hear from what other people have to think. So if you are checking out the show, definitely appreciate you for listening. Hopefully you continue to listen on throughout the episode. But going on back to this Indians trade, not only do they get Delino DeShields, that's really going to help them in the outfield. Not the most solid bat in your lineup, but is at least going to get on base and get you some stolen bags. So it'll be fun to watch him and Naquin next year in the outfield. Which one will move from center field? Who knows? I have a feeling they are going to move Naquin over DeShields and have DeShields play center field, but that's all up in the air right now. And then Emmanuel Clase has a lot of upside. He can hit triple digits. Definitely a guy who has a little bit of inconsistency, but a ton of upside. So for the Indians, not a bad return, not the best return. However, for the Rangers, they got themselves a guy who can really, really help them. Because right now, their rotation is really, really nice. Right now, it's going to be Kluber. It's going to be Mike Minor, Lance Lynn, Jordan Lyles, and then Kyle Gibson. So they are ranked right now, I believe, in the top 10 for WAR in MLB combined. So that'll be fun to watch them. I definitely think this is going to be a rotation that can get them finally back into the postseason. And what do you know? The Rangers going for pitching first amongst all things. And I mean, especially the fact Rangers at this point, they have themselves a definite ace now. Back in 2018, just some stats here for Corey Kluber. Went 20-7, 2.89 ERA, second in the Cy Young voting. Now last year, had some injuries, some setbacks, had a 6 ERA. Not the greatest, but this is where really Corey Kluber can bounce back. He is getting a little bit older, but still, what he's shown, if he can show what he had in 2018, he's still got a lot in the tank for the Rangers, especially with the last 3 years on his contract remaining. So for the Rangers, definitely a big time trade for them. Going on, one signing that was the biggest so far this week, another big guy to fall, or a big domino to fall, should I say. The Arizona Diamondbacks signed Madison Bumgarner to a 5-year, $85 million contract. Last year in 34 starts, had a 3.9 ERA and went 9 for 9 on the year. Bumgarner, of course, getting to the tail end of his career. Nothing what he used to be of his prime. We all know that. Definitely a bit surprising that he decided to go to the Diamondbacks. Of course, it was for the money that they were throwing at him. But I could see if he really wants to end up on a contender to finish out his career, maybe the next 2 or 3 years, plays for the Diamondbacks, has a great, turnout for them, gets traded at a deadline. Diamondbacks get some guys back because I know not only do they have some young guys developing, like Seth Beer, who they got from the Astros in the Greinke trade, but I know as well they have some guys in the MLB that are really, really young guys, and that could really help this team, especially with some pitching guys like Archie Bradley. Ooh, they definitely aren't in the right spot to compete right now, but they at least have a lot of upside for the Diamondbacks. So for them to go out, get Bumgarner, bit interesting, I will admit, but at the same time, not a bad signing for them at all. Moving on, the Brewers made a very, very underrated signing, in my opinion, going and getting Justin Smoak on a 1-year, $5 million contract. Last year, didn't have a very good batting average, went 208. Pretty poor batting average, honestly, on the year, but did have a 342 on-base percentage and 406 slugging with 22 home runs and 61 RBIs. If Smoak can bounce back to what he has done in the past, he's really going to help out the Brewers, because not only do they have guys who they have signed throughout the offseason for very, very little, and have really made some minor adjustments here and there, especially with a guy like Christian Yelich in your lineup, who really, really hurt the Brewers last year when he wasn't in postseason. Of course, we saw what happened with the Josh Hader emotional breakdown basically on the mound, and just everything, or I should say meltdown. That's the word I was looking for. He just did not perform well in the playoffs, and especially now the fact they are going to try to ship him out, that's going to be interesting itself to see. Hopefully they get some pitching prospects out of it, which I believe they want to go for, but not only that, but they have some guys in their farm system who are going to be really, really good, especially in the middle infield. So that'll be good to watch. Also, they just got Luis Urias from the Padres, which will also be really good for them. They got a lot of guys who are really under the radar signings. They also got some pitchers last week that we talked about on the podcast. Another reason to go listen to the other one to catch up on that news if you haven't already. But overall, not a bad sign for the Brewers, especially for $5 million for a 1-year deal. Experimental deal for sure to see if he pans out to what they need to, but very low risk, high reward for the Brewers. Same thing goes for the Royals. They signed Maikel Franco to a 1-year, $3 million contract. Last year didn't have, as well, not the greatest batting average, 234, not a great on-base percentage, averaged 297, and had a pretty decent slugging averaging of 409 with 17 home runs, 56 RBIs. But the reason why this is a very, very underrated signing and a low-risk, high-reward signing is because of this guy's defense. He was the backup option for the Rangers, who at this point, I feel like are just going to try to find a replacement for the next 2 years and then get Josh Jung up in the majors. And right now, what I've seen from him in the minor leagues, and hopefully what I'll get to see if he gets called up to Frisco this year, is just what he does or what he can do overall. He's got a pretty decent bat as well. He's a pretty good infielder, so hopefully turns out pretty good. Hopefully doesn't turn out to be another Mike Olt. That would be terrible for the Rangers at this point in their rebuild. Trying to go now into contention, of course, now getting Corey Kluber. We'll see how that all pans out, though, but I feel like that'll be the thing the Rangers will get. But for the Royals, this is really going to help out their infield, especially with Franco being a really, really nice defensive third baseman. He's going to give you your money's worth, especially for $3 million. I mean, that's near a steal for the Royals, in my opinion. Going to help out their infield tremendously. Not really going to help them with a bat in the lineup, but if he can bounce back, I know in the past he's had some pretty decent years. So we'll just have to see how that develops for the Royals. Going on, the Minnesota Twins signed Tyler Clipper to a one-year, $2.75 million contract. Last year was signed to a minor league contract by the Indians, got called up, and produced a 2.9 ERA in 62 innings pitched and 53 appearances. There is a running joke between Tyler Clippard and I, or really should I say that I have this running joke that he looks like me. If you pull up a picture of what I look like when I play baseball and what he looks like, he basically could be my father. He looks close to identical to me. I have met him in person. I have told him that. I showed him a photo. He had a good laugh about that. So definitely a great signing for the Twins. Nowhere near going to replace Kyle Gibson. Not only the fact that he's not a starting pitcher like Gibson, but the fact what Gibson produced. But at the same time, Clippard's really, really going to help out the bullpen for the Twins overall. Give them some not only veteran leadership, but as well as going to help them to go late into games. If they got to pull one of their starters, I know Clipper could go very, very deep into a game as a reliever. So that's really, really going to help the Minnesota Twins this year as they continue to push for postseason contention. And then finally, Ian Kinsler retired after 14 seasons. Being a diehard Ranger fan when I was growing up, I still am, don't get me wrong. But he was one of my favorite players before he bashed the Rangers in that Tigers trade, which sent Prince Fielder to the Rangers, which would have been a great trade overall if Prince Fielder wasn't injury prone, even though Rangers still did get some production out of Prince Fielder as well did the Tigers get out of Kinsler. But Kinsler was one of my favorite players growing up, especially other guys like Michael Young, David Murphy, Hank Blaylock, Frank Catalanato for my Rangers fans, if you remember him, Kevin Millwood. Those are just some guys off the top of my head that I remember watching as a kid. Definitely I see Ian Kinsler being inducted into the Rangers Hall of Fame, maybe getting his jersey retired by the Rangers. Same thing maybe with Josh Hamilton, that he finally gets his retired. I know he was inducted into the Rangers Hall of Fame. We'll just have to see about that, especially what's been going on recently with Josh Hamilton. That is a very debatable topic. But, I mean, overall, I think one of the funnier parts for Ian Kinsler, and really something that kind of sucks, he was one hit away from 2,000 hits in his entire career, which definitely stinks, but I mean, overall, Ian Kinsler had one heck of a career. It was awesome to get to watch him as a kid. Definitely going to miss it. But especially when you have guys that are coming up like Fernando Tatis Jr., Pete Alonso, and I mean, Juan Soto, so many more guys that are to name. Right now, baseball's in really, really good hands. So I'm excited to see how that pans out for the MLB. The new face of baseball is going to be, or really the new era of baseball is going to be very, very exciting to come. Going on to NCAA basketball, James Wiseman leaves Memphis to prepare for the NBA draft. If you don't remember, Wiseman was suspended by the NCAA for receiving some payment. I believe it was, I don't remember, it was either a bet or some financial stability. Don't really remember the reason, but he had to serve a 12-game suspension and as well donate that amount of money to a charity, which, in my opinion, I don't understand that ruling for NCAA. I think it was a terrible ruling idea. I just don't see why you had to do that and why the NCAA thought that was the best way to go about it. I do like that they did make it to a charity, but at the same time, to make a player pay a charity even though you're not paying players is a bit ridiculous in my opinion. But the real question becomes, is this the possible downfall to college basketball? Do you think that teams are really going to start looking, or really players in college basketball are going to start looking to go to the NBA G League, as we know that the G League is now getting pensions for their players, paying them better, and really the NBA is trying to get these young guys that are looking for college basketball to go play in the G League, develop there, and then go into the NBA draft. And I personally think, yes, number one, the payment, right? If any college basketball, or really anyone that has college basketball talent and has NBA talent, they're going to probably take money over college basketball. Right now, that's not the case because the G League is not fully developed yet to go after these college guys. Of course, even though the G League is developed, it's not developed to where they're planning on getting it. So, at this point, I definitely think this could be the downfall of college basketball. And this is kind of where we could see those top guys going instead to the G League, developing there, working their way up, and then going into the draft and getting drafted. Will James Wiseman go into the G League? I have no clue. I think it'd be interesting, and I think if the G League can get him into that role, definitely think that could be humongous for the G League and a huge step in the right direction for them to get to where they want to be. But yes, that is definitely up in the air at this point. Another big upset that happened this week, Kentucky lost again to Utah by the score of 69-66. This is their second upset of the year. For Kentucky, this is really a point where they need to reevaluate themselves and look and see what they need to fix and what they need to get better at. Because they have lost twice now. They have been upset by Utah and then Evansville at the beginning of the year. Do I think they could bounce back? Of course, I really do. Number one, it's Kentucky. They're a basketball powerhouse. Number two, they've done it before, right? Do I think they're going to be the champions of college basketball this year? No, I don't think they will. But then again, it's up in the air because the number one teams have been getting upset left and right this year. So we're already getting that March Madness type of feel, even though we're in December and still have a lot of college basketball left to play. So that'll be very, very exciting to watch within these next couple months. I know for sure I'm going to be keeping up with college basketball. I would definitely recommend my viewers out there to keep up with college basketball because especially with James Wiseman leaving now, who's the big guy in college basketball, and then everyone getting upset. It is a crazy, crazy year for college basketball. Moving on to college football, Navy beat Army for the first time since 2015 by the score of 31-7. Navy running back Malcolm Perry had himself a day, going for 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, and on 23 carries. Overall, this is an amazing game to watch every single year. If you've never watched it, highly recommend watching it. They leave a week just specifically for this game. You wouldn't think there would be much of a rivalry between the armed forces, but yes, there is a humongous rivalry between them, and they do get heated at some points. But my favorite part of these games are the uniforms that both teams bring out. They bring out a special uniform for each game. I liked Army's this year, the green that they used on the helmets and just the accent green overall on the white jerseys. I thought they were freaking stellar. Navy's really, really liked everything. I didn't really like the helmets. You know, I know a lot of people did say that the helmets were really cool. I didn't really think that. I thought they were a bit interesting. I'll put it that way. I think they could have done better. I liked Navy's helmets from a couple years ago, where it had the navy blue on the back with the, it was the gold, I'm trying to describe it as best as possible. Some of you might know what I'm talking about. It was the diagonal navy blue, then with an accent of gold, and then a white helmet with an anchor on it. I thought those were the freaking coolest Navy helmets I've ever seen. I just like this game every single year. Especially the fact that it's always a fun game to watch. It's great football, and the amount of rivalry between these two schools is insane, to say the least. Moving on, here's some big news was the Heisman candidates and the Heisman winner, which was undoubtedly going to be Joe Burrow. This season posted 4,715 yards, 48 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions on the year with a 77.8% pass completion rate. He's the first LSU player in 6 decades to win this award and the second in school history. I mean, Joe Burrow has had himself one heck of a year. Being a transfer from Ohio State just a few years back, he has really developed into this potential number 1 pick, and whoever gets him in the draft is going to get a great quarterback. Hopefully he does pan out in the NFL. I don't want him to end up like a Tim Tebow or a Johnny Manziel, especially the fact those two were freaking amazing in college football. But Joe Burrow, I mean, hats off to you, man. You had a fantastic season. I remember watching him in the Texas LSU game. I mean, this kid is very, very special. The things that he can do, we haven't seen in a while. You know, at first it was going to be Jalen Hurts or Tua winning the Heisman. If you remember back to September 21st, which when this podcast goes up tomorrow, will be exactly 3 months since, which to me is insane to think that this podcast has been up for 3 months. This will be episode number 14, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, episode 14. But it's insane that this podcast has been doing so well. And I've enjoyed recording every single episode. It's always fun to provide my feedback and as well my guest feedback every single week they come on, which we will have a guest next week. I can promise you, if it's not Aaron, it's going to be someone. I can promise you that. It will be someone. But overall, I mean, Joe Burrow, whoever gets him, I feel like he's going to go number 1 in the draft, and whoever gets him is going to get a stellar quarterback, to say the least, and a guy who can really become a cornerstone in the NFL for any team that he goes to. So we are going to take a quick commercial break. When we get back, we're going to be talking about, ironically, the NFL and as well just a little bit about the NHL. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. The Max Danielsen Show is proud to announce Gage's Granite as an official sponsor for the Saturday podcast. Gage's Granite is a family-run company operating nearby in the Dallas Metroplex. They offer custom granite, travertine, onyx, and marble countertops to homeowners and businesses since 2000. Give them a call today at 972-243-6097 or visit gagesgranite.com or on Facebook and Twitter. You can also stop by the main showroom located at 2427 Glenda Lane in Dallas. Gage's Granite, a proud sponsor of the Max Danielsen Show.
Hey guys, this is Jason with Lacrosse Monkey. Are you looking for a place to shop for your next athletic season? Monkey Sports is here to help. Whether you're looking for baseball, hockey, or lacrosse gear, if you can dream it, we've got it. We provide both the latest and best on the market equipment for your athlete. Stop by and visit us at 105 West Bethany Drive, right off of US 75 in Allen. Monkey Sports, a proud sponsor of the Max Danielsen Show.
And welcome back to the broadcast. Where we left off, we were talking about MLB free agency, the Heisman winner, Joe Burrow, in NCAA football, and as well the Navy-Army game. And then in college basketball, James Wiseman leaving, and then the upset with Kentucky. Now we're moving on to the NFL. The Chiefs claim Terrell Suggs. He was released by the Cardinals this season. A very interesting release, to say the least, in my opinion, because he was still producing for the Cardinals. Now, in no shape or way is Terrell Suggs the Terrell Suggs that used to be, where he was an absolute lethal option on defense with the Ravens. But I mean, not a bad signing for the Chiefs at all. Definitely, this could help them. It's definitely a silent signing for them, and definitely could help them push for Super Bowl contention. And at this point, I mean, Terrell Suggs, like I said just a second ago, he's still producing. I mean, he's not producing the numbers he used to by any means, but he's still going to produce for the Chiefs. So definitely for the Chiefs, great signing. Great signing. Could possibly go down as one of the more underrated free agency pickups of the year. For Josh Gordon, he was suspended indefinitely due to performance drugs. He had the suspension earlier this year, then got reinstated, played with the Patriots, then got released, went to the Seahawks, played with the Seahawks, and now is suspended again. And it really stinks because this is something that Josh Gordon has been dealing with over his entire career, not only with the Patriots and Seahawks, but as well when he played with the Browns. And it really stinks because Josh Gordon is a very, very solid receiver in the NFL and will give you your money's worth when you sign him. So definitely is going to be a hit for a blow for the Seahawks, should I say. And as well, it really stinks to see that happening to Josh Gordon over and over again. And it stinks that he can't stay out of that trouble, but at the same time, I do wish the best for him, and I really hope that he can bounce back and get clean. I really, really hope that he can, because he's a talent that the NFL does need. He really is, because overall, a great guy. It's just that drug issue and the drug problem that he has is really holding back his career. Moving on here, the Saints picked up Janoris Jenkins, who was released by the Giants the past week due to an offensive tweet toward a fan. Definitely interesting that the Giants released him. I don't think they should have released him. Frankly, I thought they should have fined him. If anything, I feel like athletes should be able to respond to fans, especially if it's negative feedback. I know athletes do respond for positive feedback. Take, for example, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope on Twitter. I bet he gets berated with people just telling him, you stink this year, because he hasn't played well at all. He really hasn't. And he doesn't respond. There's some guys that don't do that. But I do feel like if you go after a player, they should be able to respond. Because why? They're human. They're not robots, all right? We see them as this godly figure, but at the same time, at the end of the day, they're humans, right? I feel like they should be able to respond to that. But for the Saints, overall, really helping them push into a spot to where they should be considered the top team in the NFC, along with teams like the 49ers, Seahawks, and Packers. Now, the Packers are a bit of an inconsistent team, especially they have a lot of flaws in their defense and some on the offense. For the Seahawks, they're a bit of an up-and-down team, but at least they've been consistent lately. We've seen the 49ers are mortal and can fall to teams. So right now, the NFC is up in the air for anyone at this point, and it'll be fun to watch the postseason. But speaking of the Saints, along with their win versus the Colts by the score of 34-7, Drew Brees passed the all-time passing touchdowns leader over Peyton Manning with 540 total touchdowns in his career. In the game, he went 29 for 30, 307 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And as well, another MVP candidate, Michael Thomas, had 128 receiving yards and a touchdown. Just 128 yards, my bad. But right now, Drew Brees, we all know, one of the most underrated quarterbacks in all of football. He's not only has a cannon of an arm, he has extremely high football IQ and really makes plays done. And when he got traded from the Chargers to the Saints when it was during 2006 of Hurricane Katrina, he really helped the city bounce back from that and created this dynasty for the New Orleans Saints. And it's been interesting, especially with when he went down with that injury. The Saints still were playing extremely well. Teddy Bridgewater stepped up and played well for him, and then when he got back, just like he never left. Definitely right now, Drew Brees, awesome to see that he got it, highly deserving of that accomplishment, and undoubtedly will go into Canton one day. Probably one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. Definitely, in my opinion, one of the most underrated of all time. And then finally for the Detroit Lions, they announced that Matt Patricia, their head coach, and Bob Quinn will return for the 2020 season. Over their time, they have won 9 games, lost 20, and tied once. Right now, they're having 7 consecutive losses, and especially with the Lions being in a division that's extremely hard, being the NFC North with the Packers, the Bears, and the Vikings, we know they're going to be the bottom feeder of that division and really have been that quote-unquote lolcow team of the NFL where they believed, and I feel like this is where they're finally starting to understand that they didn't get what they thought. Just because you come from Bill Belichick's team doesn't necessarily mean you are going to inherit the next Bill Belichick. And that's especially what we saw with Matt Patricia. And then whoever decides to sign Josh McDaniels, they're in for a whirlwind of surprises there to see that probably is not going to turn out to be the next Tom Brady. I know a lot of teams have tried to avoid him and really don't want him to be their next coach. So it'll be interesting to see if the next year in 2021 they will decide to fire Matt Patricia. I don't know, but I definitely feel like if they do, he'll find a job easily. He will find a job easily in the NFL, wherever he may go, whether he go back to a coordinator position or whether he step in for a head coach position. I have no clue, but I feel like he would go coordinator coach over anything. So that is going to do it for the NFL. Moving on to the NHL, Jack Eichel had a 17-game point streak. He amassed 24 goals, 50 points on the season. In that time frame, he scored 16 goals, 31 points in total with a plus 17 rating during that stretch. However, that streak came to an abrupt end on Thursday night with an upper body injury, which really, really stinks for Jack Eichel because he was having one heck of a year and it still is. And I know the Sabres are really going to be a team to watch in the future, especially the fact they have Rasmus Dahlin, who is an up-and-coming defenseman in the NHL. Definitely can be a real big surprise team when it comes to playoff time this year. I don't think they're up still for the Stanley Cup. Now, I did predict them a couple weeks ago, but the more I think about it, I just don't think they're ready. I think they're too young of a team, but definitely within the next couple years, they are going to be one team to beat and really could become the next big team in the NHL. Maybe the next Blackhawks. I have no clue. But it was awesome. I did actually get to meet a couple summers ago, believe not this past summer, but the summer before, got to meet him with my sponsor, Monkey Sports, and Jared Hedges, who will be again on the show on January 3rd. We got to meet him. Super cool, down-to-earth guy, but more specifically, one heck of a hockey player. He is one of the faces of the NHL, the new era of NHL, along with Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews. Those guys are just stellar so far, and it's going to be fun to watch this new era of hockey. Same thing goes with the MLB, and as well when we get in the NBA here soon with Luka Doncic, Trae Young. I mean, you got a lot of guys, and heck, whenever Zion Williamson gets back, that's going to be fun to watch. But staying on with the NHL, the New Jersey Devils traded Taylor Hall to the Arizona Coyotes for a first-round pick, a conditional pick, and multiple prospects. Now, the Devils also gave up one more player. I do not have the name of that player, but I did see that they gave up another player. For the Devils, you get a ton of draft. You get 2 big draft picks and as well multiple prospects, which is really, really good for them, especially the fact that they are a very, very young organization at this point. With Nico Heiser at their helm, I mean, they really can't. If they do things right, they can really become a great team again in the NHL. And then for the Coyotes, definitely interesting why they went after Taylor Hall, especially they're kind of a bottom feeder team, in my opinion, in the NHL. But at the same time, when you get an MVP candidate player, well, last year he was considered an MVP candidate player. This year he has 6 goals on the year, 25 points. Not the greatest, but again, not the worst. I mean, for the Coyotes, this is a humongous trade for them. Humongous trade for them because of the quality you get out of Taylor Hall. You know what you're going to be getting from them. Then again, like I just said, hasn't had the greatest year, but definitely think, especially that now he's going to Arizona and he's going to become the definite now face of the franchise. He's going to be able to turn around. So definitely a great return for both teams, and especially the fact, number one, Devils get young prospects and draft picks, and now Coyotes get a really, really solid player. So, excuse me there. We are going to take a very quick commercial break. When we come back, we are going to be talking about the NBA with Luka Doncic, how David Stern is doing so far since his stroke, and then the recent proposal that will be proposed in the 2021-2022 season. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. The Max Danielsen Show is proud to announce Gage's Granite as an official sponsor for the Saturday podcast. Gage's Granite is a family-run company operating nearby in the Dallas Metroplex. They offer custom granite, travertine, onyx, and marble countertops to homeowners and businesses since 2000. Give them a call today at 972-243-6097 or visit gagesgranite.com or on Facebook and Twitter. You can also stop by the main showroom located at 2427 Glenda Lane in Dallas. Gage's Granite, a proud sponsor of the Max Danielsen Show.
Hey guys, this is Jason with Lacrosse Monkey. Are you looking for a place to shop for your next athletic season? Monkey Sports is here to help. Whether you're looking for baseball, hockey, or lacrosse gear, if you can dream it, we've got it. We provide both the latest and best on the market equipment for your athlete. Stop by and visit us at 105 West Bethany Drive, right off of US 75 in Allen. Monkey Sports, a proud sponsor of the Max Danielsen Show.
And welcome back to the podcast. Where we left off, we were talking about the NFL and as well just a little bit about the NHL, especially with Jack Eichel's point streak and as well Taylor Hall being dealt to the Arizona Coyotes. So before we get on with the rest of the topics, just want to give another shout out to our sponsors, Monkey Sports and Gage's Granite. Make sure to go check them out. Gage's Granite is in Dallas and Monkey Sports is in Allen. They're great people. If you do go visit them, make sure to tell them that we sent you here over at the Max Danielsen Show. So with going on into the NBA, Luka Doncic suffered an ankle injury and will be out for a few weeks. This is a very, very big blow to the Dallas Mavericks. Of course, Luka Doncic has been having a phenomenal MVP caliber season. 29.3 points per game, 9.6 rebounds a game, and as well 8.9 assists per game. However, for the Mavericks, this is also a really, really good opportunity for Kristaps Porzingis to show what he's about. And he's already shown that. I know just a couple nights ago had 23 points. Also, I want to say had 10 or 12 rebounds in the game. But really, this is where Kristaps is going to be able to get his reps in and show why he deserved that massive deal that he got signed to in the summer. Kristaps hasn't really been having the greatest year, I will admit. But he has at least been effective on defense, which we didn't see from him in the past. So definitely good for them. And I know also Seth Curry is doing extremely well right now for the Mavericks, as well as Dwight Powell coming off the bench. I believe they switch him in and out every single night, or just depends on the night, but he is a guy who they do and do not switch out. But definitely this is going to be big for the Mavericks. I know just a couple nights ago they did end up beating, I want to say, was it the Bucks? I'm pretty sure it was the Bucks, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know why I'm not remembering this. I'm having a brain fart. Give me just 1 second here. 99% sure it was the Bucks. It was the Bucks. Okay, 120-116 in that game. Kristaps Porzingis in 33 minutes had 26 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists. As well in that game, Seth Curry also had 26 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. And then Dwight Powell didn't really do good that game. Also in that game, Dorian Finney-Smith, he's also having himself a pretty good season in that game. 35 minutes, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist. So right now, Mavericks are in really, really good hands. Especially with the fact, even though Luka is out right now, and thankfully it's not for that long for the Dallas Mavericks, but at least the team as a whole is still holding up, especially with Kristaps and Seth Curry stepping up, as well as Finney-Smith and Dwight Powell. Going on, an update about David Stern this week. So far, he is still in critical condition. We do send our prayers to David Stern. It definitely stinks. It just seems like yesterday when David Stern retired and Adam Silver took over. So prayers up for David Stern. Hopefully he makes a speedy recovery. I do not want to have to. I really don't want to have to. Possibly with next week's podcast or the week after, or however long. I really don't want to give the news that David Stern passes away. I really don't. I really hope he makes a comeback, and we get to hear from him in a few weeks, see how he's doing. But yeah, again, prayers up for David Stern. Hopefully everything is going to be okay with him. Now, moving on to the NBA as a whole, this is exactly why I waited so late today to do it. Not because I couldn't find a guest, but because this was just released today. According to Shams, sources say the NBA has sent teams the proposal for the 2021-2022 season changes. They are proposing a 78-game regular season in-season tournament, $1 million per player, $1.5 million per coach's pool for the champions. They have play-in tournaments for the 7 through 8 playoff seeds. The Final Four reseed in playoffs based on regular season records. As well, they also say all 30 teams are involved from late November to mid-December. There are divisional games, 4 home, 4 away for group stage. 6 divisional stage winners plus 2 wild cards for the knockout. Quarterfinals at home market, semifinals and finals at a neutral site. That is going to be interesting. So, kind of like the Super Bowl almost, where there's going to be a neutral site. So right now the NBA, they're going to limit the season by 3 games. They're going to have an in-season tournament, which should be very, very interesting, going to bring in a lot of TV revenue. But more specifically, now in the playoffs with the semifinals and finals, they're getting rid of home court advantage, which I don't know if I necessarily agree about, because that is a humongous piece for any team in the NBA. Take, for example, the Golden State Warriors in Oracle Arena. I mean, it was one of the hardest places to play in the NBA because of the fans, the team that they're playing. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. I really don't, because it's just such a weird concept to think about. In-season tournament, love the idea. I think that's an awesome idea. I just am not a big fan of that neutral site idea. And what I've also heard are people are saying they want to get rid of the conferences, the divisions. Just keep the conferences and divisions. Every single sport almost has one. Just keep basketball the way it is. I do think they need to limit the games. I definitely think that, because it's a long season, especially going from October to April and having to play 82 regular season games. Some games having to play back-to-back nights, having to travel across the United States to play games. It definitely takes a toll on players, and especially for prime example, Luka Doncic. I mean, the overuse of this year, eventually got injured. I felt like this was going to happen, and unfortunately it did. So I definitely think the NBA needs to look at reducing the amount of games they have per season. Love, again, the idea of the in-season tournament. Don't like the idea about the neutral site. I really don't. I think that each team should have home court advantage. And now that comes to the question, if it's a neutral site, does that mean it's going to be the 7-game series? Is it going to be a 5-game series? Maybe a 1-game series, like a March Madness style tournament? Who knows? There are a lot of unanswered questions. And of course, within the next year, for sure, we will be getting a lot more updates on those changes. And if they get accepted by the NBA or rejected, in my opinion, I feel like they're going to reject this idea just simply due to the idea of the non-home court advantage. I feel like that's going to be a major, major piece of that. I think they'll be okay with the in-season part, the in-season tournament, and lowering the games, but not the neutral siting. I think that is, and definitely with also the playoff format, definitely think they are going to have to revise that and maybe adjust that. So that is going to do it for today's episode. If you are still listening, make sure check me out on College TV Ticket today when Austin College plays St. Thomas. Those games, I believe it's going to be at 2 p.m. for the men's team, and for the women's team, it's going to be at 4 p.m. And especially a shout out to the Lady Roos. They are playing phenomenal this year. Right now, I believe they are 7-0 as we speak. Hopefully tomorrow can extend that to 6-0. They actually might be 8-0 right now. I'm pretty sure those 7-0. Don't take me on that, but I know they're undefeated for sure. They're either 7-0 right now or 8-0. So definitely, again, check me out on that as I call those games. My voice will probably be gone again by the end of it, but hey, that's okay. And again, next week we will have a scheduled guest. I apologize for just having me doing a solo broadcast for the past 2 weeks, but soon enough we will be on our regularly scheduled program. So once again, thank you for watching, and as always, have a pleasant good morning, a good afternoon, or good evening to you, wherever or whenever you may be watching. Thanks, y'all. See you next week, and a Merry Christmas. Thanks, y'all.